Hi everyone, this is BritSimon. So I wanted to update for the South America and Oceania region. I actually had thought that this would be kind of clear to most people, but thinking about it, it perhaps needs to be sort of stated and made fairly clear. So hence my video here. So I've already posted for the AS region and EU region. I've posted videos that explain the distribution of cases, how case numbers will look, etc. And for at least one region, I'm able to paint a picture like this, which shows the stepping of countries and how they get limited at certain number ranges, and how the distribution of cases will be. And the yellow color here indicates holes. So this is for the Asia region. EU region actually doesn't have a pattern like this. There's going to be only one limited country, which is Russia, and that's limited at such a high number that we can almost disregard it as being limited. For South America and for Oceania, there's a sort of even simpler story. Oceania and Asia don't have limitations, don't have any country that is limited. The reason for that is because and the way that I can be certain of that statement is that when we look at the numbers here, there is no single country that has a very large number of selectees. Unlike other regions, for example, like in Europe, where we have Russia that has 6,000 selectees, 6,001. Remember that number; it's critical. There's no other country that has that many selectees. So what's happened is all the countries in Europe had exactly the same chance of selection, and all the countries in Asia have exactly the same chance of selection. So whether you're a selectee in Cambodia or whether you're a selectee in Brunei, you have the same chance of selection. The exception to that is where you have countries which get so many selectees that they're actually artificially limited during the draw process, and that has happened for Iran. And there we see that magical 6,000 number, 6,001, 6,001 for Russia, and you can see 6,001 here in Algeria. You can see 6,002 for Egypt, and so on and so forth. You have other countries that have hit this sort of strangely coincidental number of 6,001 or 6,002, and so that indicates an artificial limit. Strangely, I also know that Nepal is artificially limited but did not hit the 6,001 number. I know why that is, but for the purposes of this video, you can ignore that and just understand that there are no limited countries in either Oceania or South America. Right? What that means is that the rate of holes that is in those countries, in those regions, will be consistent throughout the whole number range. Right? So as long as we know the highest number, and as long as we know the distribution or the number of cases that we can predict within the whole number range, we can figure out today, even without having the SEAC data finally, we can figure out how many holes there are in each number range, which allows you to predict your chances or where you are in terms of the whole range. And that'll make more sense as I go through the video here. So we asked for information the other day, and I got a terrific number of responses. For Australia, I got 53 responses, and for South America, I got 60 responses, I believe. Let me just check that. I've pasted them all here. Yes, so 60 responses for South America. So let's just look at the highest case numbers that people reported to me. With so few numbers, I can just scroll through here. So 41XX there, We've got 44XX from Uruguay there, 40 there, another 40. Looks like 44. 44, yeah. So 44 is our highest, and got another 41 there. The highest number of responses is from, in South America, the highest response is 44, right? So we can consider that to, let's just assume that to be 4450, or in the sort of the 44 XX range, right? And there is support for that. There is support for that number. It's not an outlier because we can see we've got other responses at 4,000 range, 4,100 range, and so on. It's not an outlier. Therefore, I believe it. I can take it as a confident number. I can believe the 44,000, 4,400 range. There are several there in 37 range, etc. There's support for that range all the way up. Okay, and in the same way for Oceania, we have individual case numbers here reported, and I'm pretty sure I already know the highest number for Oceania, which is 3250. I've seen it reported before in my blog, and I believe it's reported again here. But again, I've got other numbers in the 31 range here. There's one report of 32. XX in there, which I'm pretty sure is probably the same person that's reported to me before. Actually, I think there is another one here. I saw a second one. I have the email addresses to these people, so I can confirm the finite detail of this if I need to. Yeah, there's another one for Australia. So here I've got 53 responses and 32x is my highest number, and I'm going to take that as 3250. So just using a little bit of statistical calculation here, we take the number of responses and the highest number reported. Now we could take that as 4,400, and when we do that, the calculation comes out at 4472. So that's my lowest range of prediction. And so let's do that. So we'll put SA here. SA 4472. And if the number here, on the other hand, was 45,000, let's say 4499, which is the high end of the range reported, that would be to 4573. Now, this is a simple, I should probably explain, this is something called the German tank problem in action. It's kind of an interesting thing, actually. I like to look it up every year. This is a statistical problem that imagine you are on the battlefield and you capture a number of tanks. And in this case, they give an example where each of the tanks has a serial number, and you capture tanks with number 19, 40, 42, and 60. Based on those numbers, can you predict what the highest number of tanks is that you're going to encounter? Yes, you can. They did in the Second World War. They called this thing the German tank theory. There are a number of ways statistically to calculate what the range is, and what you should do really is apply all those different statistical methods and come up with a range. I'm just going to apply one of them, which was the original German tank problem itself, and see if that gets us an accurate enough result. I think it will. It's good enough for our purposes. Okay, so if we look at that, that's going to be my South America range there. I'm going to take the number there, and if I do the same thing for Australia, 53 responses with 3,200 as the lowest end of the range. That would give for OC 3259, and the highest range would be 3299, 3360. Okay, so my case number range as a highest for Oceania using this one statistical method, MVUE, is 3259 to 3360. I'm actually going to go on the lower end of that, and I'm going to assume 3250 is pretty much the highest case out there, right? And that's a bit glib. I should probably, well, let's go with 3300. And for South America, I'm going to go with 4500 as being the number that we're going to use, right? Okay, so now we have those two numbers. Now we need to look at the number of selectees. Now I'm predicting this number of selectees. It's not exactly right, but you've seen these numbers before, and that's why I thought people would be able to figure this out. But we know that in Oceania we've got a total of 2,815 people. Selectees, that's principal winners and their derivatives. That's how many people are announced on the visa bulletin. And we think that there'll be a derivative rate of around about 1.6 based on previous years. So that gives us 1,759 cases. And for South America, using the same method, we've got 5,500 people, 5,501. And that would give us 2751, right? So we'll use those two numbers, we'll say 1750 and 2750, and we'll plug those numbers in to our calculation, right? So if we have 1750, and sorry, let's do it again, 2750 there. Cases 1750 for Oceania. Okay, so we can see there's a number of holes, which is relatively easy to do now. So we can say that number divided by 3,300, that's 53%. And if we do the same thing here, 61%. So what that means is that there are in South America, for every 100 cases, 61% of those 100 cases will be real cases, or case numbers, sorry, 61% of the case numbers will be real cases, and 39% will be holes, right? So that means that if you're in South America and you've got case number 2000, for example, your case number is 2000, you've actually got 1,200 people in front of you, right? Because 39% of the case numbers are holes. They're not real cases. They were people that were disqualified during the original draw process. They never knew they were winners. They were just immediately disqualified for various reasons, right? So it creates holes between the case numbers that are actually announced. And therefore, and we know that these holes are going to be dispersed throughout the whole range, distributed throughout the whole range in a fairly uniform way, because there is the draw itself is random. There's no logic to the draw that says let's have all the good numbers at the lower end or the good numbers at the higher end. There's no logic to it. So they first of all assign the numbers, then they disqualify people. People misbehave or make mistakes at the same rate throughout the whole range, and therefore randomly the 39% are going to be distributed fairly evenly throughout the whole range there, right? So that's what that means. You can calculate, therefore, whatever your number is, you can calculate 39% of holes in front of you, or 61% of winners in front of you, and you know where your case is in relation to the whole number of cases. In the same way, in Oceania, you can do the same thing, but you use 47% as the number of holes. And again, you can do the same sort of math. You can say, okay, if I'm at case number, let's take case number 3000 now. Case number 3000 would have what, 530 cases per thousand, so a total of 1,600 cases in front of you if you're case number 3000, right? That's how that works. Now, the question that you'll then need to ask yourself is, how many of those, if you're case number 3000 in Oceania, how many of those 1,600 cases will decide not to proceed? And there'll be quite a number of those. Probably about 40 to even 50% of the cases may not even proceed. And then of the cases that proceed, how many will be denied? how many will have made mistakes during their case. They're not actually eligible. They don't meet the education requirements or whatever it might be. They get denied at interview, right? And that's going to be another small percentage off of that. So if you're at case number 3,000, 1,600 cases will be in front of you. Not all of them will try and process their case, but for each case, an average of 1.6 people would be approved if they're finally approved. So that does fairly obviously mean if you are at case number 3,000, your chances are pretty bleak, frankly. And I've explained before, I think anybody with a case number higher than case number 2,000 in Oceania is pretty much at risk. There is a quota for each of the regions. The quota for South America this year is going to be about 1,650. The quota for Oceania is 820 this year. And that quota includes principals and derivatives. So, and at these rates of derivatives, you can roughly half that number of cases, around about 850, 900 cases will get lucky in South America, and around about 500 cases in Oceania will be lucky. So that's what we have. That's the information we have. Hopefully that's a clear enough explanation for you to understand, calculate your own chances, and have your eyes open. And this sort of information is pretty accurate. There's a few guesstimates in it. In the estimation at the moment, we get better information in January once we got the SEAC data, so you can look at it again then. But if I were a person in Oceania or South America with a high case number, high meaning above these sort of ranges that I'm talking about, high above 2,000 in Oceania, I would not submit my DS260 at the moment. There are all these other factors that are playing into this year. The pandemic, for example, could close. Let's say, the pandemic itself could close one of the embassies. Let's say not all of the embassies in the Oceania region. It could close one of the embassies in the Oceania region and then take out some number of selectees. For example, right? It would mean that those people wouldn't have the same chance to proceed. So there could be some external factor that will change this sort of thinking, but that's basically unless that happens, we're talking about the math, and the math is fairly clear. In South America, by the way, because of the makeup of the people, let's go back here. We look at here in South America. There's a different sort of mindset here. The only countries that are that have a large number of selectees in South America are Peru, Venezuela, and Cuba. In Cuba and Venezuela, for political reasons, people can't just walk down to their local embassy and get an interview. It's difficult in both of those countries to get an interview. They've got to go to different countries. It's expensive comparatively with the amount of money that people in those countries have. And particularly in Venezuela, there's all sorts of political problems anyway, that even traveling out of the country at the moment would be expensive. Traveling to the USA at the moment would be impossible for the majority of people in Venezuela. So there's a large chance that people in Venezuela and Cuba don't actually process their cases, which will change the makeup for South America as a whole. Peru is a country new this year, and we don't know how people in that country will behave. We don't know how many selectees, how many derivatives there are per the average Peruvian case. So that sort of complicates the calculation a little bit. We don't know how many people will proceed. We don't know if it will be a high number or a low number in Peru. And so I'm not, even though I can calculate something mathematically, for South America, I'm not ready to say there's a high number range or a risky range or anything like that. It really is a wait and see region, simply because there's so many difficulties for the vast majority of those 5,500 selectees. So, if you add up these 3 countries alone, where there are going to be, most of the selectees, in 2 of those countries there's difficulties, in 1 of those countries it's an unknown commodity, and so therefore we can't make predictions, right? So you can know your number, you can know how many people are in front of you, but you don't know how many people are going to respond, and that makes it difficult. But at least you can know something and try and estimate your chances that way. All right, I think that's probably covered it. I didn't want to make this too long, and I already have. So apologies for the length of the video, but I hope you found the information useful. Have a great day. Bye bye now.